Hello. I wanted to talk about the idea that many of us aren't living the life we want to live. Many of us are in terrible careers that we feel isn't worth pursuing. We feel like we are trapped in the rat race because we are working for barely anything. By the end of every year, we barely have anything saved up for retirement. And it feels like anything that we want to pursue is such an uphill battle that it's almost pointless. In general, life feels dull. Everything feels like it's not worth it. There are just so many things that aren't going our way. It seems like life isn't going as planned, right? Regardless of the age you are, whether you're in your 20s or 30s, it feels like we could be accomplishing so much more, but we haven't. And I've come to the realization that if your life isn't going as great as you want it to be, the only advice that's worth pursuing right now is to go on a dopamine detox. I know it sounds like nonsense, but if you truly reflect on why your life isn't going the way it's planned or the way you want it to, it's because you are so your brain is so overstimulated with quick dopamine fix from mindless scrolling, all this entertainment, that you can't focus doing hard work. And if you can't focus doing hard work, you're not going to have any results to show for. And that shows in the career you have, whether you are employed or not, right? You could be so much better off financially if you just spent all that time pursuing high value skills, but instead you can't focus because your attention span has been depleted by so much because you're so used to mindless scrolling, all these quick dopamine fixes, right? That doing hard work is just so difficult to do. Another thing is our health, right? Eating healthy tends to not be very convenient, right? When we eat healthy, we tend to have to cook meals for ourselves rather than eating out, and that takes time. And healthy food for the most part doesn't taste good. The issue is when we're so used to entertainment from our phone, from watching TV, YouTube, being on social media, just eating just eating healthy food isn't stimulating enough that we can't stick to it. So that's another area that's affected. And reflecting on my own life, I noticed that when there are times when I'm nearing averaging 8 hours being on my phone, just mindlessly scrolling, I would have terrible sleep. Me naturally, I'd have never slept well throughout my entire life, but when I'm on my phone for too long, those nights I sleep terrible. It's like you guys can relate when you're on social media or you're on YouTube all the time, your brain can't handle being bored. So when you're laying in bed, you can't just close your eyes and drift into sleep. You have to have some music or some video playing in the background just for you to actually fall asleep. And I'm sure you guys have tried in the past to go a few days without your phone and you have failed every single time. And the sad thing too is that the first 7 days or the first couple of weeks, you're not even recovering. So the idea here is that through overstimulation, what happens is that your brain has dopamine receptors that actually downregulate. So the amount of dopamine receptors in your brain are reduced when you're overstimulated all the time. So that means you're desensitized to less dopamine releasing activities such as reading a book or eating a nutritious meal, right? Or just focusing on solving a hard problem. So even though the first week you have these withdrawal symptoms and you feel anxiety, you have to stick through it, because believe it or not, the first week is actually the easiest. And it's not even the most beneficial to your brain too, because you're just going through all these withdrawal symptoms. It's after the first week where all the healing occurs, where your brain is able to rewire and rebuild those dopamine receptors. And so just keep in mind that the first week is always the hardest. So when you attempt the dopamine detox again, right? Just keep this in mind. And also keep in mind the reason why you're doing it. You need to have a clear purpose on why you are doing this. For me, it's so that I can be more financially free. So I realized through my life that I drifted into jobs. I never actually took the time to reflect, because every time I did have by myself, I would use it to go on social media or watch YouTube rather than to sit in boredom and reflect on my own thoughts and learn what I like and what I don't like. And this has led me to a path where I'm not financially independent, right? And I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate. If you guys are in your 20s or 30, you guys feel like you've never actually took charge of your life. You've never actually made the conscious intent to go into a certain career. Rather, you took the path of least resistance. This tends to happen because our brains become lazy. When we're so overstimulated all the time, our brains are so uncomfortable when it's faced with boredom, with reflection, that it can't do it. It just finds the simplest answers to everything. So when we're faced with the life decision of deciding what we want to do with our lives, it's such a it's such an uncomfortable feeling, and it's something that we aren't used to because we're so overstimulated all the time that by default our brain goes for the most mainstream answers. So we go into the sciences or the trades or this and that. We basically don't even do a deep reflection on ourselves and research all the possible job opportunities and what jobs are even available. Instead, we just go into these generic jobs that everyone's going to, and that leads into regret. And it feels like we wasted so much of our lives in school pursuing something that we won't even like. Maybe we won't even get a job in that degree that we even got, right? So this is why it's so important to actually break free from this addiction, the addiction of being on your phone all the time, the addiction to this the addiction to being stimulated all the time. It's not good. I can see it. You can see it everywhere you go. Everyone's always on their phone. And if you actually took the time to, you took the effort and you actually broke through the first week, you'll realize how much better life becomes, how much less dull things are. So I urge you to consider a dopamine detox and just be mindful that the first week is always the hardest, and always be aware of the reason why you're doing it.